evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to our December 10, 2024 regular council meeting. Last meeting of the year. Roll call, please.
Mayor Reeves,
Here.
Vice Mayor Yao,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Clancy,
Here.
Councilmember Olinger,
Here.
Councilmember Ramikis,
Here.
Councilmember Russell,
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt,
Here.
Councilmember Short.
Here. Agenda approval. Any changes? If not, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, pledge allegiance. Mr. Ramikis.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. On the consent agenda this evening is the FY25 budget adjustment for traffic engineering department insurance claim, FY25 budget adjustment for electrical fund distribution equipment for new residential development, tap privilege reduction for certain accessory dwelling units, acceptance of grant funds from the Virginia Tourism Commission, treasurer's reports, and minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving right along. Public forum. The public forum is the opportunity for town citizens, visitors, and group to speak or bring to our attention any town government related items. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Groups are requested to have a spokesperson. If you are here for the public hearing, please hold your comments until later. Is there anyone who would like to speak this evening? Come on up, sir, to the podium. And this is public forum, not the,
My first time here. Happy to be here.
welcome.
We moved in just when COVID hit, so we were very much in our place. We're in West Fairfax area and in the Redwood Lakes addition. So we're right on the border there. So the reason I'm here is last Saturday, and I just want to draw your attention to the wonderful tour of homes on East Street last Saturday. And I appreciate the people that organized it. I want you to take note of that, and I think it should be in the record. I think it's the first time in 6 years that it's been done. And as interest would have it, one of the homes, the Listeria home, is owned by a couple of the residents here, the Kaisers. And it was just wonderful that people like them opened their homes, and there's the largest going through, and there are a lot of people going through there, but they were so wonderful, and it just happens that they're here tonight. So I'd like to give a shout out and a thanks. That's part of what makes a town work. We can work together and really enjoy it, and it's part of the history of our town, which is very important. So afterward, I took the folks that attended that over to another house, and I want to speak to you and give a shout out and commend your attention and possibly some sort of award, some sort of recognition to the Burgundy House. And I hope all of you have been there. The folks I took hadn't been there. I've been there. My grandkids have been there. And it's a wonderful place. And so my first time here, I want to call attention to the Burgundy House. And of course, you may be familiar that Susan Williams has passed away. May God rest her soul. And now it revolves on, I believe, David Reeves. And I think she posthumously, and David Reeves for his many, many years, deserves your consideration for some sort of attention award. Thanks for what he's done. And he was there, of course, as he's always dressed in his uniform, and as he always does, explaining all the history. And I think it's just part of what makes our town what it is. And so I commend that for your attention, and then you'll have to see what you'd like to do with that. Finally, third thing, I'd like to thank all of you. It occurred to me afterward that just to thank all of you for what you do. And the other night there were Patriot Awards. And I think all of you and these people I mentioned deserve Patriot Awards and local Patriot Awards for all you do. Thank you for your service. This is a thank you. And may you have a wonderful last meeting of the year. And may 2025 be even better than this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Wicker.
Anyone else like to speak? Come on up, ma'am. Name, address. Yeah, sure.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Peacock, and I live in Culpeper County. I'm not a town resident, but I used to be a town resident. I love the town of Culpeper, and that's a hard act to follow right there. I'm here tonight on behalf of Culpeper Human Services because this year, in partnership with Encompass Community Supports and with the oversight of the Winter Heat Shelter Planning Committee, with our community partners, have opened and are operating the 2024-25 Winter Heat Shelter at St. Luke's Lutheran Church, which is located here in town. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak for just a minute about this. Last winter season, there were 62 people that were served in the warming shelter, and 31 of those individuals, or 50% of those individuals, were from the town of Culpeper, were from Culpeper. Our data doesn't break it down between town and county, but they were from Culpeper. Anecdotally, we know that those folks stay close to the services and the resources that are available to them, which is in the town. And most of those individuals were working and had vehicles, but couldn't really afford a place to live. The purpose of the warming shelter is to provide a warm and a safe place for individuals to come out of the cold for approximately 90 days over the worst months of the winter season. We understand that since the town of Culpeper is located in the county, that town residents support both jurisdictions by their taxes. However, I'd like to proffer to you tonight that the town provides services such as increased police protection, crime prevention, crime control, planning and zoning, solid waste collection, and all those other things that the town does as additional constituent services funded by the municipal taxes that enhance and augment the services provided in taxes paid to the county by town residents. Therefore, since many of these individuals are participating in the winter shelter or essentially living in the town limits and utilize the town resources, because most of our calls come primarily from the town police department and private citizens and businesses within the town, we ask that you consider the warming shelter as an augmented or enhanced town service that complements and improves the services funded for this purpose by the county. We consider the town of Culpeper, and I mean this very heartfelt, as a valued partner in this effort, and we're seeking financial support for the shelter and whatever the amount the town council would deem appropriate. So thank you this evening. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? No one else? Closing the public forum at this time. Any new business for consideration by council? None? All right. All right, let's move right along. Public hearing on Culpeper Technology Campus Profit Amendment. Andrew.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We do have before us this evening a request for a proffer amendment related to the Culpeper Technology Campus. I'll provide a brief presentation. The applicant is here with representatives, and they're happy to answer any questions, but they have not prepared a presentation this evening. So as noted, this is case RZ 5107-2024. It is a proffer amendment to a prior rezoning. They are simply seeking to change the proffer statement. The rezoning itself remains in place. The request is related to the noise emanating from the site. They're requesting to change the standards for those measured. Currently, they're proposed to be measured by decibels within frequency bands. They're proposing to change that measurement to measures by A-weighted decibels. This request came about and was initiated by the applicant after they sought to initiate their sound study that is required as part of the original rezoning. At that time, in consultation with their consultant, they were informed that the language that was proffered, which matches current town code, is somewhat outdated as far as the methodology for measuring sound or measuring noise. And so they reached out to the town to inquire about how this could be amended. And we identified that the Copper Ridge rezoning on the adjacent property had recently been through a rezoning process, and the noise standards associated with that did utilize the more current A-weighted decibel levels that they are now proposing to use. So the changes from the currently approved proffers that they're requesting is, as I said, that switch from decibels within a frequency band to A-weighted decibels. A-weighted decibels essentially prioritize those frequency bands that are more audible to the human ear. They've increased the definitions included within their proffer statement. One of the impacts of this is actually to increase, or rather decrease, the number of daytime hours when the louder noises are permitted. And so the nighttime hours are actually increased where the more restrictive noise standards would be in effect. This does include exemptions for emergency sirens, construction, daytime landscaping, emergency equipment maintenance, as well as emergency equipment operations during power shortages and outages. As I said, this language does mirror that was approved with the Copper Ridge rezoning. So looking at what the proposed noise limits are versus other localities, you can see here, proposed for the residential, it's a 60 dBA level during the daytime, adjacent to residential properties. Other localities, most of them match that 60 decibel level, with the exceptions of Spotsylvania and Culpeper County, which have higher levels. For the industrial, it's at 70 decibels. In the nighttime, it drops down by 5. So it's proposed to be 55 dBAs. Again, this matches with a number of them. Front Royal does have a lower level. That's the one example of a surrounding jurisdiction that does provide a lower level of dBAs. We have received public comment on this related that does indicate that for the residential, that this represents actually a decrease, a more restrictive standard than the current frequency band measurements. So that's worth noting as well. So this did go before the Planning Commission. They did hold 2 work sessions on it to discuss the matter before conducting a public hearing last month. At that time, following the public hearing, they did recommend approval of the proposed proffer amendment by a vote of 4 to 1. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have, and I will reiterate that this is simply a proffer amendment. The entitlement for the data center facility has been established through the rezoning. Is our understanding from the applicant that regardless of the outcome of this, they intend to move forward with the construction of the property. This simply changes how the town would go about enforcing the noise standards against the data center facility. So happy to answer any questions council may have.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jay.
Can you repeat what you just said? And just want to make sure I'm understanding clearly that the proposal would be quieter than what it is currently?
Essentially, if you make the conversion of the frequency weighted decibel bands to dBAs, as I said, it employs various weighting. For those properties that are residentially zoned or utilized adjacent to this, it's a very slight reduction or a more restrictive standard. For the industrial ones, it would be an increase. However, the concern that we've heard is primarily from residential property owners in relation to this, and so did want to point that out.
So for the residential piece, it would be more restrictive and quieter.
By measuring by the dBA standard.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
kind of have a question. So I know looking at frequency bands, so looking at A-weighted decibels compared to C-weighted decibels, C-weighted tends to take in lower frequency, but unless the sound pressure levels are high, then you don't really hear those higher or lower frequencies that would be brought in with DBCs. So I understand the DBAs are what basically the human ear can hear. I think some of the concern that we have is those lower frequency sounds that could travel, that would be more represented by DBC levels than DBA levels. So that's just a concern that I have moving directly to DBAs. That was a little heady. I'm sorry about that.
You finished? Are you finished?
Yeah, I'm done.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just,
Joe?
yep. So I think there's, the field trip we recently took to the STAT facility out in Prince William was very informative, just from a human hearing perspective. And seeing some of the comments coming back from the community, I think there might be some misinformation circulating around there. And I think some of the points that you made tonight helps to clarify that. But could you speak a little bit about the independent consultant that will engage on this topic, the noise study that the developer will have to perform before the facility is built? Can you clarify that a little bit?
Certainly. Included in the original proffer statement and continued on with this proposed proffer amendment is a commitment from the developer to provide a noise study related to this development. The timing of this was carefully thought out because essentially we wanted to get through the site plan approval process to know exactly where buildings would be cited, what the elevations would be of all the buildings, what landscaping would be proposed as part of the project. All of that factors into how the sound is transmitted and how far it will carry and what the impacts are. So at the time that they are preparing to file for building permits, they are required to submit to the town a comprehensive noise study related to their project that will essentially show the impacts, show how they have mitigated the noise emanating from their facility. At that time, because I am not a noise expert, we will be reaching out and engaging an independent consultant to review and verify the information that's shown there. To essentially demonstrate and receive that confirmation that the mitigation measures that have been proposed and will be installed by the applicant are sufficient to subdue the noise to an extent that it does meet the committed levels that they have within their proffer statement.
Okay, and then just a quick follow-up. I think, Travis, you're right about the differences in the frequencies, and we just want to make sure that when that independent sound analysis is done, it's not simply taking the high frequency into account, but I assume that their testing will move across that spectrum, right, and focus on low frequency as well as high to give us a true picture of what that actual sound's going to look like.
We'll be asking them to provide a comprehensive one. Essentially, the levels that they'll be obligated to meet will be whichever ones are confirmed within the proffer. So if this were to be denied, essentially that study would need to demonstrate how it met the commitments in the proffers with the frequency bandwidths. If the proffer amendment were to be approved by council, it would need to show how it meets the limits of DBA at the property line.
All right. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Reaper?
And that's a very good point. I'm with my esteemed colleague over here next to me. Because with the A-weighted decibels, yeah, it basically excludes the lower and higher end frequencies. And so basically at that point, we're looking between 250 hertz to maybe 500 kilohertz. And the ones that have been studied and talked about on the lower frequencies are below that. So you can have all the independent studies that you want, but if it's still based on the amended A-weighted decibels, I don't think we're getting the right picture. Now, so, I mean, this standard, I mean, this goes back to ISO accepted it like in 1967 or something like that, right? Long before data centers were even in the picture. In fact, data center at that time might have been a fancy way or a clever way of saying library. And there were some modifications made and all that, but I think A-weighted decibel measurement is great for environmental noises, for occupational noises, I don't think they're the right standard for data centers. I think we need to rewrite the book on that. Not just us, but I think the whole, all governments.
You have anything else, Andrew? Anyone else? Thank you, Andrew. Open the floor this time for public hearing. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Does anyone like to speak tonight? All right, come on up to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor Reeves and council members, all of you. My name is Jackie Kaiser. I live at 602 Southeast Street in Culpeper. My husband and I live within 2 minutes of the proposed Copper Ridge data center. We live on the corner of Southeast and Chandler Streets. The Copper Ridge data center proposed location being on Chandler Street. We are opposed to approving changes to measuring the low-frequency noise generated by data centers. Low-frequency noise travels further than high-frequency noises. A recent study done by the former NSA scientist, Dr. John Liver, of the proposed William Data Center, states that data center noise typically travels 2.5 miles. Data center noise typically travels 2.5 miles. Being as the approved data centers here in Culpeper will be clustered together, it is equivalent to a mass campus like the one in Manassas. I think you all should check it out if you haven't yet. As the approved campus is in tandem with other data centers, you can think of it like lawnmowers. One lawnmower you can tolerate. You get 4 lawnmowers going at the same time, it becomes intolerable. Okay, let's look at parties. Say one party is going on in your neighborhood. It's not too bad, but try 4 parties going on in your neighborhood at the same time. It becomes irritably unbearable. And there's one other important thing that I want to make from just things that I've studied, from what I understand about this. And I do understand about the A decibels and C, which is what you need to have checked. The noise, that low frequency sound that data centers generate, that noise, you cannot block frequency sounds. You cannot block low frequency sounds. You cannot block low frequency sounds. It goes over whatever you're trying to block it with. You can't block it. If you don't believe me, research it, look it up. This noise has shown from other data centers built close to residential neighborhoods causes stress, anxiety, and most importantly, heart disease, and has been linked to other health problems by scientists. This is not just me talking. This noise is detrimental to our health and well-being. I respectfully urge you not to change measuring that noise ordinance for the data center, but rather to investigate the noise issue further. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and address this important issue. Appreciate your listening.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up to the podium.
Hi there, I'm Rice Wagner, 109 East Asher Street. Not far from their house, which is very close to what we're talking about. And I am aware that all of you have received a letter from Andrew Dowdy, actually it's an email. And rather than respond to it by email myself, I wanted to come in person and eyeball each of you and say to you that I have a great deal of concern about the issue of the A versus C. And the feeling is very strong that A is not an adequate way of judging the impact on the citizens of Culpeper as far as the noise issue is concerned. And I also feel that why go ahead and vote on the issue until you have the results, the clear results of what the C issue would be as far as the area is concerned. And I therefore urge that you either deny or defer the CTC proffer amendment and wait until you have all the facts. Remember, whatever you vote, whatever you decide, will impact Culpeper forever. It will make a difference in the community and in the quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. My name's Andrew Dowdy. I live at 602 South Blue Ridge Avenue. I sent a letter to the commission last week. I just had a couple of extra points. I attended all three of the commission meetings that discussed this. Frankly, it was an example of the blind leading the blind. These are complicated issues, you know, different frequency basis versus A-weighted versus whatever. I do think that the claim was made repeatedly at all three commission meetings. The proposed proffer is tougher standards than existing. And I would argue that depends on what frequencies you're concerned with. The existing standard, the existing code may actually be tougher if you're looking at low frequency noise, which appears to be the key issue here. I would point out yesterday, the JLARC committee of the Virginia legislature just released their report on data centers and said that A-weighted noise standards do not fully capture the low frequency noise emitted by data centers. They actually recommended C-weighted standards, as Mr. Brown has suggested. I think if anything else, that in itself gives you pause to consider what you're looking at here. I guess I'm a little confused. The Planning Commission was told that they really need to make a decision quickly so that Peterson could adopt this tougher standard. And I don't quite understand it. There's nothing that you're holding up about them constructing or designing these buildings to a tougher standard. If they wanted, they should design it to a tougher standard if that's what they want. And they're covered either way, whether you approve this amendment or not. I suppose I'm getting cynical, maybe too cynical in my old age. But frankly, I think a little bit of healthy skepticism is in order when you're receiving information on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, everybody. Brent Amos, 801 Southeast Street. First, I want to say thank you to Mr. Amicus and Mr. Brown. Those were very thoughtful comments. So I'm an architect by trade. I work in facilities that are designed with similar technologies when it comes to generator uses, air-cooled chillers, exhaust fans. So I understand the technologies and I really understand how to remediate that sound. The information that has been provided so far, and granted it is in early phases, has been significantly lacking to be able to confirm what's contained within it. In terms of the standards that are being adopted, right now, you know, the A-weighted and C-weighted we've talked extensively about. There are other ways of creating standards and other adopted standards in other communities that address this very issue. You can adopt different decibel levels based on the various frequencies because low, medium, and high frequencies actually have a series of bell curves in them that are perceived to be uncomfortable. While the general accepted amount of comfort with decibel levels for low frequency is 60, medium frequency is also 60 and 55 for high frequencies. As you go in different hertz within that curve, there's actually at the high and the low ends of those recommendations for actual lower decibel levels. The most complex and best adopted version for reviewing this would be the NC noise criterion or the balanced noise criteria, the NCB. Both of those address the fact that as you have various levels, that the perceived discomfort with it does change. So I would recommend that the town look into those as they look to adopt new policies for the development of our beloved town. With regards to this one, Mr. Dowdy hit the nail on the head. There is nothing that is preventing people from meeting more stringent requirements. And as I understand it, the developers are looking to be good neighbors and good stewards, and as such, they should really look to do that as a member of the community. So I appreciate your thought, your attention to the matter. I know it's not easy, and I look forward to discussing it with you guys in the future to hear the thoughts around it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor Reeves and members of the council, my name is Rich Kaiser. I live on Southeast Street. I don't claim to know a lot about high frequency or low frequency noise, but I do know something about noise because as my time that I served this country, I lost over 60% of my hearing due to noise. So if I take my hearing aids out, this room is as quiet as it can be. So, and I do know that we would not even be here tonight at this meeting if data centers did not know that the main concern of citizenry is the noise that they produce. And data centers are not generally loved by the average citizen who lives in their vicinity. They may be liked by the town government for the money that they provide to the coffers to do things for the citizens, but the citizens don't see that. They hear the noise. And in almost every community in Virginia where there's a data centers, there are unhappy citizens. And I don't know if that's something that you all know, but I think it's something that you could or should look into. That noise is a primary concern of data centers. We're not concerned about the building, how big it is, how ugly it is. That doesn't bother us. Most of us never see it, but the noise travels and people are upset everywhere by the noise of data centers. And I know that they're a great thing for the economy right now, but they're not loved by citizens. So I hope that you all will take the time, because this is what the citizens are concerned with. This is what the citizens of communities all over Virginia are asking folks like you to take our concern into consideration and look into the noise, because you are the people that are protecting us. And we look to you, because once that data center is done, all we can do is protest. And you wonder, well, where are all the people that, are upset about noise and data centers? Well, they don't come here till this meeting until they actually get the noise. So we're people that are asking you to maybe help us out, look out for us. So that's all I wish to ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Meg Hunt. I'm at 846 Kingsbrook Road. And I really appreciate your holding this hearing to give us an opportunity to speak to you as your constituents. What the decisions that you're making are ones that cannot be undone once they're done. which I echo all the other citizens who's been spoken, how you need to proceed very, very carefully here. On one level, your decision is very personal to me. The Copper Ridge Data Center is literally going to be outside my bedroom window and outside my family room windows. And I don't know, frankly, whether there's anything you can do to ameliorate that, but I would like to think that you could try as much as possible to minimize that impact. On top of that, I can't pretend to be an expert, but I think you've heard from some good people here on the noise aspect. I'm also concerned about the effect on my neighbors and the friends who live in Culpeper. You know, I'm in Culpeper. I'm within the boundaries of the town, but those who live closer into town than I do, and I guess somebody mentioned it earlier that this isn't just one data center. It's multiple data centers with big footprints, and the effect is going to be cumulative. And I guess I would ask, do you have any idea what that's going to look like? For me, who lives on Kingsbrook Road, right on the edge of Chandler, across the street from Copper Ridge, and for those people who are in town. And I think that's a real serious issue. I was interested in the discussion about the high frequency, the low frequency. The high frequency that you can hear is a problem, but I have been reading more about the low frequency and the infrasound, and they talk about it much more extensively with respect to wind turbines. But it's also an issue with the data centers. And that it travels through everything and can affect the biological functions and the cell functions in your body and cause problems there. And I think that you all need to help us understand that and work through that before you go forward. And it's not just us as human beings, it's our pets too, and our children. And you know, I was talking with a colleague. I used to work for the Edison Electric Institute, so I know the power industry pretty well. And it was after I'd been down to one of the meetings here, and we were talking and said, there are new technologies coming out for data centers that reduce the footprints and may address some of these issues and maybe slowing things down a little bit and looking at what the cutting edge technologies are going to be would make sense. But I won't take any more of your time, but I'm feeling a little helpless right now because, like I said, I'm not sure that there's anything you do that really helps me, and I don't know how I'm made whole with this. And it's too late for me to move. And I lived in Arlington for 30 years, and I moved to Culpeper about 7 or 8 years ago when that was supposed to be residential. And it wasn't until I moved down here that I learned that in Arlington, where I'd lived for 30 years, in Washington, D.C., there was a constant level of background noise, and it was stressful. And when I moved down here, I was relieved from that stress. And you're about to bring some of that here to Culpeper, and it will adversely affect the quality of life here. And I consider moving, but it's really hard to move these days with the economy the way it is. But I chose Culpeper to be here, and I like it here, and I'd like to stay here, and I'm hoping that you can take more time and protect us.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor Reeves, Vice Mayor Ayala, and council members. My name is Charlotte Cole. I live on Blue Ridge Avenue. I understand that an offer was made to you to visit a Manassas data center, Stark, I believe it was, so you could get a firsthand experience of data center noise. If you did not make that trip, I respectfully ask that you instead visit the Great Oak neighborhood in Prince William County, where data centers have caused consistent complaints from residents about low-pitched roars and tinny screeches. This is far more appropriate scenario comparable to the potential that we'll face here in Culpeper. Also, as you know, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission's year-long study on data centers was released yesterday. If you didn't get to view that presentation, I urge you to do so, to view the live recording. It's available at jlarc.virginia.gov. There's also a printed report available. It will help clarify particularly some of this information related to noise. Chapter 6 deals with of that report deals with residential and states. Most local noise limits are defined, and we've heard this before this evening. Most local noise limits are defined as using A-weighted decibels. This metric is designed to target exclusively loud noises or excessively loud noises from sources such as parties and barking dogs. The lower frequency noise data centers emit is not fully captured in A-weighted decibels. Therefore, data centers' noise rarely exceeds the allowable limits set in ordinances, despite the constancy of the sound being problematic for residents. To effectively address data center sounds that cause residents complaints, localities could develop a supplemental noise limit defined using a metric that better accounts for low frequency sounds such as C-weighted decibels. The report goes on and says, as such, an A-weighted decibel, as such, not in the report, as such, the A-weighted decibels that CTC is asking for are proven by the state's own research body to be ineffective. And even though they are asking you to align their noise standards with those of Copper Ridge, both would be ineffective. As the old saying goes, do wrongs, don't make a right. Data center noise is a complicated issue, as we totally understand. I urge you to explore the intensive year-long research across a broad spectrum of data center locations that was conducted by JLARC, the organization that's charged with program evaluation, policy analysis, and oversight of state agencies on behalf of the Virginia General Assembly. In short, I ask you not to approve the applicant's request. Rather, please contract with a firm not associated with the data center industry to conduct an independent noise study of both CTC and Copper Ridge. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? You got it. Take your time. We'll wait for you.
I'm Sarah McDougall. I live with my sister Meg on Kingsbrook Road. I just moved in with her a year ago from St. Louis, Missouri. And I observed a lot of St. Louis City making bad decisions in terms of development and ignoring what made St. Louis a great city. And it was at one time a great city, and it is no more. Where I lived in St. Louis, Missouri, I was right next to an interstate, which had constant, unrelenting noise. And that was unfortunate because of my financial situation and a lot of other extraneous reasons. That's where I ended up living. I mean, I loved living there, but the noise was very undesirable. I'm sure there are probably stronger words I could use for that. That's the best I can do at the moment. I really don't like noise. I find it stressful. And my comments are going to be very personal and not citing all the statistics in the study. But noise has always impacted me. In fact, one of the constant struggles my sister and I have is she's always wanting to turn the TV up, and I'm always wanting to turn it down because I can't tolerate a lot of noise. So that is a concern for me. I'm not a fan of data centers. I'm not against data centers. We need them for whatever reason. That seems to be the way our world is going. But it seems to me it would behoove us to be wise and carefully considering our priorities between the health and well-being of our communities, of our citizens, of our people, and the livability of the areas that surround us.
I can't tell you how much I was looking forward to living across from cows, only to discover once I got here that that was not going to be. And that's, there's not much I can do about that, and life does go on. But I did want to have this opportunity, and I thank you, to express my concerns about the noise level, and I'm also concerned about the energy usage and water usage of a data center. I just encourage you all to be wise. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sarah Parmalee, representing the Piedmont Environmental Council. Whatever the council decides tonight, we do not believe and have never believed that this decision would prevent the Culpeper Technology Campus from happening. That horse left the barn in 2023. We are simply asking the town council to make sure that the proposed changes will provide equal or better protections for town residents than the current ones. We are concerned that the new and old noise proffers are being represented as apples to apples, which they are not. Noise is a complicated issue, and the town does not have an acoustic engineer on staff. This is why we ask the council to retain an unconflicted expert opinion before granting this amendment. We find it deeply concerning that the only expert opinion provided to the Planning Commission was paid by Stack Infrastructure, a clear conflict of interest. The sound frequency band and method of noise regulation may be old, but it is not ineffective. As has been previously mentioned, the A-weighted decibel method is very ineffective at protecting residents from the most harmful levels of noise, as was pointed out by the JLARC Commission, which conducts nonpartisan research on behalf of the Virginia State Legislature. Given this information, which may be used to draft new state legislation, we cannot recommend that the town adopt a noise standard that has been proven to expose residents to harmful noise pollution. We acknowledge that not all data centers are the same, and some can be very quiet, especially when they are not operating at full capacity. Ideally, a data center would never come near the maximum noise levels. But these standards are necessary to protect both residents and the town in a worst-case scenario. If these standards are weak, then the acoustic study that the applicant will submit won't be worth the paper it's printed on. Moreover, because of the location of the Culpeper Technology Campus, weakening these standards will potentially have an outsized impact on some of the most vulnerable populations in Culpeper, children and low-income residents, populations that need the town council looking out for them. We are not asking you to stop the Culpeper Technology Campus. We are asking you to do the due diligence to ensure that you are offering your constituents the necessary protections as this facility becomes operational. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else? Close the public hearing at this time. Approval of Culpeper Technology Campus profit amendments. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted previously, this matter was considered by the Planning Commission at a public hearing. The recommendation stemming from that was for approval of the proposed proffer amendment. Be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Any questions for Andrew?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, one more question. You had the earlier noise exceptions. Is that changed from the original too? Has that also been amended in this as part of the proffer?
The noise exceptions were not included in the currently approved proffer.
Okay.
They were part of the Copper Ridge one, and that language was copied over and included in this as well.
Could we take a look at that again?
Certainly.
Okay, so one that caught my eye was D, emergency equipment maintenance. Could you further define that? I mean, what?
Certainly.
What does that actually mean?
So these facilities do have emergency generators in the event that electrical power goes out. These emergency generators will automatically kick in to provide service for the facility to ensure that there's not a loss of service there. They do have to test these on a monthly basis. They run for 15 minutes during those monthly testings, each generator, and once on an annual basis for approximately up to an hour for those testings. So that those are the equipment, emergency equipment maintenance that's being referred to.
Okay, well, I don't see how pre-planned routine maintenance starting the generators can be considered an emergency.
Well,
I mean, I can see when if the power, I understand that, but it's not an emergency. I mean, it's routine. It shouldn't be an exception for that. It should be able to fall within the
I think as noted, I read that as the emergency equipment being the descriptor and then the maintenance being the verb there.
Yeah, but
Equipment used in emergency situations.
I can see if the power grid goes down and the power's out and all the generators fire up, I can see that is an emergency, and maybe the noise or whatever noise.
And that's essentially E.
That's E. I don't have a problem with E. D is routine maintenance. That should not, I don't think that should be exempted. I mean, what good is the noise? I mean, it's predominantly, we're talking about a noise level that restricts noise on generators and the cooling systems. What's the point of having one if when they fire up for testing for 15 minutes, that the noise ordinance doesn't protect us from that?
Wait a minute. Are you finished?
Okay, I've got my question answered.
So
Wait a minute. Janie. All right, go ahead.
Just so that I'm understanding, I read that as they're maintaining the equipment so that when there is an emergency, it works. So they have to maintain it. The equipment is emergency equipment. So what I'm hearing you say is that they should not be able to make sure it's working outside of an emergency.
Wait a minute.
I understand maintenance. I mean,
You finished?
I've had some experience in that too. You gotta test
One at
the
a
generators.
time. One at a time.
Yeah, you gotta
Have
test
you
the
finished?
generators. But if it's pre-planned and routine, how can that be an emergency where the noise ordinance, whatever noise ordinance we have, no longer applies?
Again, I don't consider those emergencies.
Right, but we're exempting them from the measurement when they're being tested.
Correct.
And we know when they're doing it. And the whole purpose of this ordinance is to protect us from noises from the generator. Am I missing something there?
Yeah, you could strike emergency. You could just say equipment.
No, it's not the label. It's when the testing is done, the noise ordinance it's exempted from the noise ordinance. That's the part I don't understand. It's not an emergency.
So basically, he's saying that any time that the generators run, they would be exempted with this proffer.
Not if it were not being done for the maintenance purposes and outside of a power shortage.
So there's no other reason except for jog. I mean, I designed them. So
Now I will note as well, and the applicant can speak to this in greater detail if council desired, but by permit, they are severely limited in terms of the utilization of these generators by DEQ. They're limited to 36 hours of runtime per year. So these are things that they do have fairly strict constraints under those permits. So it's not a situation where these could be running at a constant level.
and just to reiterate for everybody, you would not jog all the generators at one time. You would do one or two, and then you would turn those off. And you would jog another two. So it's not like in an emergency situation where you would have multiple generators fire up at one time. Just so that we understand the facts of the situation, they would
go one or two at a time. They would jog them for 15 minutes. They would turn those off, turn another one on for 15 minutes or so, you know, and they'd work their way down the line over a couple of days, usually in the maintenance cycle. So it's not like in an emergency situation where we lose power, we lose two legs, and next thing you know, they're running at 50% or whatever. It would just be one or two generators at a time, just so everybody understands what's the facts of how it actually works.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you, Andrew. Motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
John?
I want to thank the people who reached out to us over email and also came to speak tonight. It's not often that we get clear direction from an impacted neighborhood. And so I just want to thank you. Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
I would make another just quick comment. I really appreciate that, Mr. Russell. I think that you know, the feedback that we received here this evening via email, via phone calls, text messages, Facebook, maybe there is something else that we can do to help folks. A lot of us here on council have received a lot of technical briefs. We've heard from the experts. We've been able to do a lot of research. We feel comfortable with, you know, our own individual decisions on this topic, but I think it might be a fairly good idea to figure out a way to be able to provide a lot of that information, whether we vote to approve or vote to disapprove this evening, regardless. I think it might benefit us to think through how we can present a lot of that information to the public so that citizens, our fellow neighbors, can, you know, get that same benefit from that same type of information and understand this a little bit better.
Sounds good, Joe. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I don't see any hurry to approve it, this proposal. I don't see any reason to deny it either, but I think we could postpone it to a certain time so we have a little more time to discuss this and get a little more input on the effect of noise and whether we're doing it right. So
okay.
That would be my, well, I don't know if I could yes, Mr.
Bill?
Honest, I think I agree with you. I think that we've heard from the citizens, and it's hit me that there's a lot of not so much misinformation, but not enough information, and it's obviously even the state has done this study, and they're somewhat confused as to what we should do. So I'm worried about the low frequency, and I think that we owe it to ourselves probably to investigate that.
Anyone else?
Well, then I'd like, if there's anything else I'd like to, well, I don't know if that would be an amendment, but
Anyone
propose.
like to make an amendment?
I'm trying to remember my parliamentary procedure here, whether a motion to postpone to, well, we'd have to give a specific time, let's say January or February or something like that.
You making a motion?
Yes.
What you buying?
Well, what do we have now? Well, I would say give it 2 months at least.
February.
So no, that would be at least 2 committee meetings. I would say postpone this to March.
Are you?
I'll second that.
You haven't made his motion yet.
That's just
Are
a
you
motion.
All right,
I'm
second it. Any
Mr.
more
Mayor,
discussion? Any discussion?
Yeah, if we're
before-
open for discussion on that,
Right.
I'd want to hear from, you know, the town on how the deferment, how the postponement will affect.
Right.
You
So you
know,
wanna
the
talk-
activities going forward regarding CTC.
You wanna talk to
if there's any
Andrew?
Negative impact to that.
You want Andrew back up? You want to talk to Andrew?
Certainly, yeah, sure.
Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah. So Andrew, if we do postpone this for 30 days, 60 days, how does that impact plans moving forward for this topic?
The developer is interested in getting their noise study done. Again, I can't speak for them, but I suspect they may consider withdrawing their application altogether in the event of a deferral, and then constructing it under the existing proffer language. That's it's certainly within council's prerogative to defer action if so desired. We'd look for then clear direction as to what additional information you'd like. And again, the applicant is here. This question could be posed to them as far as what the potential consequences of deferral could be in terms of their decision-making. They'd be better prepared to speak to it than I could.
Okay. Let's let the applicant come up and y'all ask them questions that y'all need to know.
Good evening. My name is Adam Cook. I am with Peterson Companies. Thank you for having us here this evening. Happy to answer any questions. If the question could be just reposed, I want to make sure I'm answering the specific question.
Who want to go first? Makers?
Yeah, the amended motion is to postpone a decision until March.
February, right?
Sure, and what would the effects of that be? So I think the reason we brought this forward was as we began to get our consultants ready to do the noise study. And keep in mind, the noise study is done, once you kind of have an idea of what you're building, to make sure that you don't spend billions of dollars to build something that doesn't comply with the ordinances. Nobody wants to be in a position where we have a problem, so that's a preventative measure to give us certainty that what we're designing is compliant with the proffers. The original proffer was a request of us by the town to proffer to the town's ordinances, which we happily agreed to because it was our intent to apply to the ordinances. Upon working with our sound consultant, we learned that the methodology really hadn't been used since 1979. And it's not that the methodology's wrong, is that today it's very difficult for people to measure it because they just haven't been measuring it that way for going on nearly 50 years. And in fact, both Andrew and myself couldn't find consultants that actually had the right equipment and that could do it. I think Andrew ultimately found a consultant in Maine. Now, if we have to do the first sound study, and if that's the first consultant we have to hire, then I think there's a conflict if you guys hire him moving forward because he'll have done our initial sound study. So it's hard for him to be independent and audit his own sound study. So the problem is we really come to a lack of resources locally to be able to measure the sound in the C-weighted bands because they just don't exist locally. So I think it becomes an administrative and a cost burden. And ultimately, that's why we came back. It was a very simple, hey, this doesn't seem to make sense for anybody here. Why don't we proffer to what's more industry standard, industry normative? I understand that a lot of people are excited about J. Mark's Publishings. I think that the one thing, very respected body, does very good work. Unfortunately, if we turn to the references and consultants page, they don't have a sound engineering team that contributed to that at all. So I think we need to understand where that advice came from. A lot of the advice is very sound in that document. It says things like you should have a sound study prior to development. Well, we have that here. That's proffered. We're doing that. So at the end of the day, we're really just trying to make this less administratively burdensome on the town to affect the proffer. Initially, when we reached out, we really had the concern that there wouldn't be a way for the town to measure the proffer. And as we've learned today, there is a way, but it requires someone flying in from Maine with highly specialized equipment. And it's, as I understand, not a measurement that can be taken live. It's a measurement that has to be gone and adapted back in a lab or a sound study to actually produce that report. So in regards of actually implementing and effectively managing mitigation, if we weren't compliant, it's not something that's going to happen on a quick basis. Vice versa, in the A-weighted decibels, it's something that can be immediately measured with the equipment that the town has already and can be immediately implemented if there is a problem in terms of mitigating and correcting that. So that was the genesis and why we're here tonight. At the end of the day, it really doesn't affect how we design the campus because the campus will meet either standard either way, but it really just comes down to, do you have to fly someone in from Maine every time to measure it and wait for their results? And will the situation creating sound be gone by that time? Or is it something that you guys want the ability to measure immediately, within a moment's notice and give us a report that we're either compliant or not? And I think that was really the notion of this evening. So it's a little bit of an exercise of where no good deed goes unpunished here. In terms of what we do next, I mean, we'd have to think about that. I think Andrew's right in one regard. The decision here tonight doesn't change what we would intend to build. We're intending to build a high-performing facility that has the most available, sound dampening and sound management technologies in it, period, per the industry. That doesn't change. It's really more of we'd like this resolved in regards to, we don't want the conflict and the conversation and the doubt to permeate the conversation. And we thought we were doing the right thing. We still believe we're doing the right thing by aligning our proffers to match Copper Ridge so that there's one management tool for measuring sound, and that management tool is easy, accessible, contemporary, and instant. That was the basis of this.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So just so I'm understanding correctly, what I'm hearing you say is that what you're proposing doesn't necessarily change what will happen, because you want to provide state-of-the-art sound mitigation processes already. What you're proposing is to help us be able to hold you accountable to.
I know that may be very hard to believe, but that is exactly correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Joe?
Joe?
Mr. Mayor, would you mind just taking a couple of comments? You've heard the comments here this evening, and it echoes a lot what we've received over the last couple of weeks. But can you speak a little bit to that low-frequency noise and how the sound study might be able to give us an indicator of what that's going to look like, and maybe even abatement measures for the low frequency?
Sure. So I am not a sound engineer, admittedly. In terms of the sound band octaves and the low frequency sound, there is a lot of research out there. There is a lot of narrative. Some of it's real, some of it's not. I have yet to see an actual scientifically tested journal by someone like the CDC, who then informs groups like OSHA around the health risks of that. In fact, I don't know that one exists. So while there's a lot of conversation about it, and you'll hear a lot of comment and rhetoric around it, I don't know that, I'm not privy to, nor have I been shown one, because I've been looking for them tirelessly, believe you me, that there's actually true medical journal, scientifically, tested or scientifically peer-reviewed information on that. Of course, there's a lot of information out there, and I absolutely believe sound are irritants, parties are irritants, 100 lawnmowers going would be irritants, undoubtedly. But the dBA level at the property line that we're talking about here is below that of a single dishwasher. I believe many members of this council visited, a large data center in full operation, and my suspicion is that a car driving by was louder than the data center with the generators running in a test mode, is my suspicion. I wasn't there, but that's typically what it is in these high-performing facilities. I think Sarah said it best, not all data centers are equal, but the product that Stack Infrastructure puts out there really is a superior product that is not just an American standard, but a global standard, tested to many markets around the world, and really implements the finest technologies in terms of operations. And that, it wasn't just a week ago that I was in these halls with the Culpeper Board of Supervisors for Culpeper County on another matter related to our advanced environmental standards and recycled waters. This is just another example. We're really trying to do the best, be the best, and bring the best to Culpeper. I think we were recognized for that in last week's hearing, and this is another example of us just really trying to be a good partner. There's not a perfect solution to this, but we do think this is the best solution, and rather to perpetuate doubt, confusion, criticism, we'd like to have a direction, know we can move forward, knowing what we're being measured against.
Go ahead.
In any of the communications that anyone received, was there any comment, or did anyone mention about the data centers that are next to this already? Are people hearing things now from the 25 data centers at Terramark? And are they causing concerns, or the data centers that exist?
I haven't. No.
No, most of the examples were of data centers in other by the localities.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Hmm? No more questions?
We have discussion on the amendment.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So I feel data centers are not right for Culpeper, or the town, or the county. I've not once had one citizen come up to me and say, we really need data centers. Just hasn't happened. You guys do great work, I'm sure. And I'm sure you guys are very successful at what you do. But since I've come on the council, I've been a no vote for everything that's had anything to do with the data center. And I will continue that tonight. So this amendment, I will also give a no to. Delaying it will not change the outcome for me. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll just say it again, I'd like to think about it too, before we vote.
I don't know how much more discussion we can have about it. If you go into Manassas, where we were, it's a lot of data centers around the same area. And to be quite honest, even though I've been to data centers before, I was amazed at the number of data centers that were there in the same proximity and the noise level. It was, and I think other people can attest to that as well. Even with the generators running, it was minimal. The cars and things going by were louder than those data centers were, period. There's a townhouse subdivision right next to it. I mean, right next to it. I don't know how many feet it was, but there's noise was nothing.
I was standing right beside one of the machines on the outside, and I couldn't even hear it running until I put my ear up to it. These guys, they work close. As they build these new data centers, they get quieter and quieter. Until you can, I wish all of y'all could get a thing that you could go down and see what we saw and hear what we saw, then you would see how things are. But you really don't know how it operates till you can go there to witness yourself. They might would set up something for y'all if y'all wanted to come and visit. So you could check with one of the guys.
I think they're good neighbors. I think, in the past, if you think about manufacturing coming in, it's not going to happen. What business are you going to bring in? Are we going to always rely just on residential taxes to fund this town, this county? We don't have big businesses coming in. We're losing businesses. We have people that have to travel into Northern Virginia to make decent money. You have service jobs here. We don't have high-tech jobs here. And each one of these data centers bring high-tech jobs, a variety of jobs, where people don't have to travel. And I think of what even those people coming in and the business that they'll bring to the town, this is all positive. My opinion.
I will just say that I abstain from all votes because I work in the industry, but I've been a proponent of data centers. I don't think this discussion is about pro-data center, anti-data center. I think it's about making sure that we have in place the right restrictions so that they don't have a negative impact. I mean, we can talk about the tax money, like, we're losing, as a county and a town, like Continental Tevis is, on their way out. Marilat, I mean, in the 90s, we lost Keller's. Like, American manufacturing might come back, but it's not going to come back to a high cost of living area like Culpeper. And as we watch our manufacturing and commercial tax base dwindle, we have to replace that with something. Otherwise, taxes will go up. It's just, it's a checkbook. So while I'm very much in favor of this project, continuing, I think that it's very important for us to set those standards and make sure that they are met.
Say I agree that the income generated helps us to keep taxes low and helps to provide amenities. I don't necessarily think that you're right. This question isn't about data centers or not. It's about the resources to measure the equipment, like, is lacking. And so the request is to change the proffer to fit what we have available to us, that we can hold them accountable to the proffer. So the question is, when is that gonna catch up? And that's not something that we know or can answer now. So that's what I'm hearing tonight, is that whatever we decide tonight, ultimately what happens is gonna be what happens. And what you said is that it's gonna be as, noise mitigating as possible. It's just gonna help us to be able to hold them accountable to the proffer that we have, whether it's the changed one or the current one. So that's what I'm seeing as the issue tonight. It's not necessarily, pro or against data centers. If we had the resources, they wouldn't have amended the proffer.
Finished? You finished?
We're talking about something that is the industry standard.
Call for the question, Mr. Mayor.
We can go with the first one?
Well, there's a motion and a second on the amendment, right?
And that's to postpone, right?
So the motion is to postpone until March 11th. And there's a motion and a second.
All this, any more discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Brown,
Abstain.
Councilmember Clancy,
Aye.
Councilmember Olinger,
Aye.
Mayor Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramikis, Councilmember Russell,
No.
Councilmember Schmidt,
No.
Councilmember Short,
No.
Vice Mayor Yao.
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right. 9.05, Town and County Interaction Committee. This is up for discussion of whether we want to add any items to it, our next meeting.
And Mr. Mayor, I think at our last couple of committee meetings, we discussed a couple of topics that could be on the agenda for the interaction meeting, but I don't think we came to a resolution on whether or not any of those were priorities for the next couple of months. So at this time, we have no topics.
All right, anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Short. All right, let's see what we got here. Town manager report, any questions on that? Council received reports, any questions on that? About the reports. FY 26 budget calendar, any questions on that or comment? All right, anyone like to say anything before we shut down? I do. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas
Happy Hanukkah.
and a Happy New Year. Be safe. Show love, spread a little love in the community. We are adjourned.